This episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you love underground music and movies, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed shirts, vinyl, CDs, and more. Go to portlanddistro.com. Plug in the discount code MikeHill666 for 15% off at portlanddistro.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Everything Went Black podcast. This week, Ralph and I are going to try a new sort of, what should we call it? A new aspect of the podcast. So Ralph, tell us about what we have in store for everyone.
Okay, hello everybody. Good to be back here. I actually it's not that new. If people followed you on the way through Metal Matters over here, they might remember a segment, and we could call it a segment, I guess.
Sure.
Where you had like a deep dive. No, it wasn't deep dives. Deep cuts. It was deep cuts, right?
Sure. Okay.
And yeah, so I came to this idea of this format, and I'll give it a name in a second. Because of the feedback that I get from you listeners out there. I mean, there's like every time we post an episode together, there are people reaching out and like adding me on Instagram or Facebook, and it's always very cool to be in touch with you guys. And friends of mine over here, they always give feedback that they learned about so many bands they haven't ever heard of, and they're grateful for that. And I thought, why not make this in like we usually have topics that we talk about that are like focused, like we do on bands or records or movies or books or whatever. Why not have something where we just talk about bands that are unfortunately way too much under the radar, and stuff that means something to us, or records that we actually love, and more people should know this. And that's why we want to welcome you to the first installment of Love Songs for the Unloved.
I like that title too. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a sheer terror record. And I mean, sheer terror is like a key example of this. Like, if people talk about hardcore and they usually don't talk about sheer terror. I mean, they're a praised band, but they're still like more like an underground hardcore band. But yeah, that record is great. That band is great. And the title just matches it.
I only like their first things. I don't embrace the majority of their catalog, though, unfortunately.
No, I'm also not like a huge fan, but Love Songs is a great record, and the early stuff too. And there's actually a connection to one of the things I chose today. So like the key idea, like I suggested to Mike, like how I would tackle it, is like having 3 items per person and going back and forth. So in this case, I chose 3 bands and 3 records, like each a record of theirs. And yeah, I don't know, like, how did you do the same?
Yeah, that's what I did. I did exactly,
right.
That. Before we get going, though, I just wanted to give a shout out to somebody, because I don't know how many of you guys out there listen to Necromaniacs, my horror podcast, but I mentioned a graphic novel by Grant Morrison called Nameless, and I could not remember the name of the person who recommended it to me, and now I do. So I'm going to say thank you, Carl Hikara, for bringing that to my attention. And I am a big Grant Morrison fan. His work with Batman I thought was great. Animal Man, Doom Patrol, all that great stuff. But I wasn't familiar with the Nameless Image miniseries that came out. And thanks, Carl. Appreciate it. You and I have been in touch. So, man, I'm going to shout you out again on Necro. That was just a great... If you're into the occult, doomsday, weird fiction, like that kind of stuff, definitely check out that trade, Nameless. Image Comics put it out. I think you said you picked a copy up, right, Ralph?
I've got I got a stack of graphic novels from someone here in Cologne, and it was in that stack. and I sort of like by browsing through the titles and the cover artwork, I made like a list of where to start. And it is in my top 3 of things I want to read. But like I wrote to you yesterday, I just finished a graphic novel called Survivors Club, which
Yes.
is also fucking amazing. Yeah.
Also, thanks everyone out there who is giving me well wishes. I contracted the COVID-19 virus a few days ago, and unfortunately, we were not able to play the show with Evoken out on Staten Island, which was something I'd been looking forward to for months. And I have to say, my symptoms are very mild. I just feel a little fatigue. I have been vaccinated, and I want to tell everybody a story about masks because, you can go out there on YouTube and you can find some overweight white person trying to force his way into a Walmart without a mask, claiming that, masks, it's my freedom, all this stuff. And, like they're Patrick Henry, like wearing a mask is something akin to Patrick Henry's "Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death," or something along those lines, which is total bullshit. So, I got COVID last week. I started feeling sick. I did not know if it was just a flu or what, so I had to go pick up my guitars from our guitar tech, and his shop was very small. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear a mask, even if it's not COVID. Why should I get this guy sick with the flu? Okay. Went to his shop, picked up my stuff. We had a conversation about this and that. I went home. A few days later, tested positive. In addition to all the contact tracing stuff you got to do, I hit him up directly and I go, "Hey, I tested positive. Maybe you should get tested just to see if you're okay. How do you feel?" It's like, I feel fine. He got tested, negative. All right? Wear a mask. Don't be a dick. You can wave the American flag and pretend you're a patriot. Great. But wear a mask. Care about people other than yourself. And do the right thing. That's my public service
Amen.
announcement for today.
Amen to that, brother. And you German fuckos do the same thing, man. It's just like it's the same here. Don't celebrate Carnival, man. It's like I just told you beforehand. Like on the 11th of November, it's the start of Carnival season, and like our cases have been spiking again. And on Thursday, in cold temperature, there were like 20 to 30,000 people, inner city Cologne, wearing almost close to nothing or shitty costumes, no masks, got boozed up, and we're just partying hard. So I wonder how the case chart will look next week. I wonder. Yeah. So bullshit.
Don't wave an American flag to be an asshole. I mean, you can have a flag, but you don't have to be a dick about it. That's all I have to say, man. It's like, I don't know. To me, it's such a fucking travesty in this country when people with their flags. It's not like I'm an American anymore. It's like I'm a right wing, fringe, conspiracy theorist asshole if you fucking have an American flag, unless you're a veteran. That's a different deal. I totally have a different perspective because I know a lot of vets, and they're very much into the American flag, which is cool. But like, just don't be a dick, I guess, is my message to everyone out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing here is, like people were like, yeah, I'm very understandable, and I was really reasonable about the whole COVID thing, but not Carnival 2 years in a row, man. Like last year I couldn't celebrate. This year I have to be a sexy nurse again and drink vodka at 11 in the morning. It's like it's my God-given right, and like COVID won't fuck this away from me. It's like, yeah, well, thanks. So yeah. Enough of that shit.
Yeah, man.
Let's leave this behind and go to some good music.
Cool.
You want to start? Should I start?
I'll start. So the first band I want to bring up is a band called Death Crux, and for some reason these guys definitely fall under the radar, and they're based in L.A. It features ex-members of Buried at Sea, which is a band that some people would probably remember, and the black metal band Lightning Swords of Death, and of course the vocalist for Death Crux, Farron Loathing, was also in Lightning Swords of Death. And for any guys out there who might have listened to Mark 1 of Metal Matters, Farron was actually a guest on there, so I might have him come back again to do this, to do Everything Went Black, since that's been over a year since I did his interview. And yeah, they have two records out, the 2018 Mutant Flesh LP and the 2015 EP Pairs of Anguish. And yeah, if you're into death rock with like at times kind of like a punk flavor to it, I definitely recommend this band. I mean, I would say that Mutant Flesh, the LP, has more of like a punk vibe to it, and the EP Pairs of Anguish is, more death rock, kind of gothic, vibe to it. But they're both great records, and yeah, anyone out there who wants to dip their toe into that world, I recommend them. Have you heard these guys?
Yes, I have. I knew them before the episode. Was glad you brought them and featured them on the episode. Good listen. Like, that guy seems to be like a legit dude. I think Lightning Swords of Death is still one of the best names for a band ever. Yeah. And I knew Death Crux from I think Cult Nation featured them at some point, and I just thought, like, cool name, cool artwork. For all you like hipsters out there listening to this, it's like there's this band Beast Milk that everybody was into. They had like one record. It's like with guys from Hex Vessel, and Beast Milk was like kind of like death rock in a way, but was really poppy, and they try to be darker than they actually are. Death Crux are the real deal. They're like a dark, nihilistic death rock punk band, and I think it's very LA in a way. Very yeah, man, they sound nasty, they look nasty, and they're a nasty band, but still very appealing, very melodic, and yeah, they're just a fucking cool band. Yeah.
Yeah, that band Beast Milk, I never got into them. Didn't they change their name to something else too?
Yeah, they're Grave Pleasures now, and are a bit more poppy, but I don't like the voice of that dude singing, and I don't know, man. I was never a Beast Milk fan, and Grave Pleasures I think are even a bit more boring. They like, there's one guy like in Beast Milk as well as in Grave Pleasures. There's the main guy of Oranzi Pazuzu is playing that band, and I mean, Oranzi Pazuzu is just like one of the best bands out there right now, but I just don't like, Beast Milk never did anything for me. Yeah.
I didn't realize someone from Oranzi Pazuzu was in that band. I love them, by the way, Oranzi Pazuzu.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I always recall like seeing them play, and then afterwards it was you at Roadburn. I saw like it was Oranzi on the church stage and then Tombs. And I just remember that like later that day you said like, okay, Oranzi Pazuzu is the future of black metal.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the progress they made, especially the last one, it is indeed true. It's like, what can you do that is new in black metal? And Oranzi Pazuzu just keep on pushing the boundaries, and they're just like one of the most unique acts out there right now. Yeah.
That's kind of the thing with Farron, the singer in this band. I think that for me specifically, it really hits all the boxes because, knowing that he has a black metal background, and he's like, to me, death rock and goth and black metal are very, they're not too big of leaps from each other, really, in some ways,
No, absolutely not.
I mean, if you listen to like the early like Bauhaus stuff, like when they were, when Bauhaus first came out, they had this, they were like gnarly, like dark, gnarly punks, and
yes,
a lot of that vibe, I think, is some of the stuff I really gravitate towards about black metal too.
Yeah, of course. It's melancholic, it's dark, and it's same here. I mean, with Planks I already did it, with Ulth I did it too, like mixing metal and the elements of songwriting from darkwave bands. And now with Ropes of Night, I've got my own post-punk band, which is not as dark as I think it could be. But it's something different. But it's like in general, the melodic aspect is there's a lot of overlap with these two genres.
Yeah, totally. So you can check these guys out, look them up on Bandcamp is probably the best way to buy all their stuff. You can find them on all the streaming apps, Spotify, Apple Music, all that kind of stuff. But definitely try to go to their Bandcamp and support them directly if you can.
Yes, it's always the best way. Yeah.
So what do you got now?
Okay. I when I made my list, like I've got 3 records down. I thought like take 3 different ones from different genres. And my thesis is that one band I'm pretty sure you will know. The second one you might know because like either you found them by yourself or I recommended them some years back. The third one I'm pretty sure you don't know.
Okay.
So let's start with the one from the neighborhood pretty much. And in connection to the title of this record, when I talked about like New York hardcore and sheer terror being more of on the nasty side of this, my first band that I chose is the band called Neglect.
Oh wow. Okay.
Do you know them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Neglect was a band that formed in 91 and they ended in 95. Came back for a brief period in 2005 and then had to stop. Neglect was when I started listening to hardcore, I thankfully got into like good stuff and had like met the right people at the right time. I mentioned this on my point of entry episode, which you can still find on the Metal Matters page on Spotify and whatnot. I had like some older kids in my school that were like into hardcore, and yes, they listened to some Youth Crew stuff too, but they were more on the heavier side. So they were metalheads and hardcore punks, and like they introduced me like their favorite band was Integrity. So everything was set there. And like some of the first stuff, they always gave me like vinyl, 7 inches, and tapes and stuff like this. And it's like, take it home, do your homework. And then it's just like Andy, the singer, he gave me a CD called End It! Exclamation mark. We Bite Records, German label, Neglect from New York City. So I looked like through a catalog I had with like a mail order, and it said like one of the most hate-filled bands, one of the most dangerous bands. The singer has to wear a bulletproof vest on stage because people at shows try to kill him. I'm like, this sounds terrifying. And actually, the music is in a way terrifying because like it's so different from what New York hardcore mostly is. And there was this brief stint of a subgenre called hatecore
Yeah.
with bands like SFA and stuff like this. They never did anything for me really, but the Neglect stuff that connected with me. It sounds like it has this neck pickup and take out all the treble that Celtic Frost used and Obituary used. So they've got a sound like Celtic Frost and Obituary. It's way more groovy. It almost has like this thing that also Starkweather has, where it's like very rhythmic. The lyrics are about depression, suicide, and just like yeah, fear, anguish. My blood is getting colder as I get older. It's the first line on the first song of End It. Um, yeah, it's nasty stuff. To me, it still holds up. It's a very specific thing in the hardcore scene. They don't get enough praise. Not a lot of people know them. But if you're into the bands that I mentioned and stuff like Poison Idea and yeah, so nasty, dark, hardcore, Neglect might be something for you.
Yeah, definitely. They fall more on the side of the fence of bands like Gehenna and that kind of thing, in my opinion too.
Yeah, but they're not as not they don't have this fast stuff like Gehenna and catharsis and tech. They have like this holy terror sound. I think you can clearly hear that they're like a New York hardcore band,
Right.
but it's still like it's more mid-tempo and it's not mosh like they did it before. Like the whole mosh thing was like popular, and that's why I think like they've fallen between the chairs. And I think if you're into stuff like Bloodlet or I mean, if you dig the first, and everybody should, like the first Chromax record. I mean, it was produced by Don Fury, who was responsible for all the New York hardcore stuff. Yeah, you will dig it. It's definitely dark. It's nasty, and it sounds unlike like most other hardcore bands.
I was thinking more towards like the lyrical content though, is more like kind of like
Oh, sorry.
yeah, like this kind of Mike Cheese, like depression, violence, crime
Yes.
kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So that's that. What's your second one?
All right, this is a band that I actually had the frontman on as a guest a few months ago, and we're talking, of course, about Trivacs, UK-based black. Well, all right, by way of Tehran, Iran, based in Birmingham, UK. Trivacs, black metal, and you know, Cheyenne was the. I had him on a few months ago. I found out about them from Into the Necrosphere, Jackie Smith, his podcast, and I was fascinated by his story, and even more interested in the music, because the music is fucking flawless, man, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, this guy was born in Tehran, has firsthand experience with, like, you know, the jackboots of organized monotheistic religion, you know, of the Islamic religion, and has totally rejected that and sort of embraced like the left-hand path. So a lot of the concepts that he has in his lyrics are really observations of life, a life that he lived. You know what I mean? So, you know, a lot of times, like, you know, we live in the Western world, and we have these like esoteric ideas about religion, and we reject, you know, the perceived, you know, persecution of we see persecution. We see how monotheistic religions have like suppressed people and all this sort of stuff, but it's all very academic in a lot of ways for people who live in the Western culture, you know?
Yeah.
But for Cheyenne, like his rebellion against that could have cost him his life, man. You know what I mean? Like he lived in like a very fundamentalist part of the world. So we talk about that in the interview I did with him. So if you guys are, you know, if any of this stuff interests you, go back and check out that episode. It's from a few months ago. And also check out Jackie's episode with him, because there was a great in-depth exploration of his music. And so, yeah, this guy is like another thing I really, you know, I've obviously appreciate and admire people who don't give up on things and have dedication. And that's something that this guy for sure personifies those ideas, because he pulled himself out of living in like a fundamentalist Muslim culture and relocated to England and continued doing his band with a whole new lineup. So yeah, it's a really interesting story. The band remains technically unsigned at this point, but they have a bunch of material out, and it's all available on their Bandcamp. And yeah, they got several demos. They have EPs, Set the Torch, The World is Dead, Into the Void. And in 2016, they released an LP called Sin. And they have a brand new LP that's complete. And right now, they're trying to find a label to work with to release it. and so I don't know what the status is right now. I've been trying to put him in touch with some people that I know that might be able to to help him out, but so far no solid plans for the release of the LP that I'm aware of. But Trivacs, Trivax. So definitely, if you're a fan of black metal, check out the Bandcamp for them, and yeah, give a listen to the interviews I did, and check it out. Yeah, are you familiar with these guys? Have you heard them?
Yeah, yeah. I listened to that episode, and like you said, it's a very fascinating story. And I took a deep dive into their catalog. And you know what? Like, I'm glad you chose them, because it just blows my mind that bands like this don't have a deal and
Yeah.
no label really wants to release them, which made me think like I really have to forward this to Stefan of Vendetta Records, because he's been doing a lot of like great black metal bands from all over the world, especially like exotic places, and they might be something up his alley. And yeah, it's also a reminder that like we live in a very comfortable place where we can just play like nihilistic or like anti-Christian or whatever anti-religious music and state our opinion without being getting persecuted for that, and that there are parts in the world where that just not happens. And that reminded me of like I just watched a documentary like the other day, which I saw like 10 years ago, and I rewatched it. It's called like Crossing the Bridge, and it's by Alexander Hacke of Einstürzende Neubauten.
Mm-hmm.
And because he lived some time in Turkey, and so he took a stroll through the independent music scene of Turkey, and there was also like a metal band, and they said like we have to rehearse in secrecy because we could get persecuted for playing this kind of music. So like playing black metal or punk in some parts of the world is still something very provocative and dangerous. Yeah, so it's a great story, this band, and yeah, people give them a shout out, and like yeah, and someone please sign these guys.
Yeah, and we're talking 2009, and not even that long
Yeah,
ago when this guy was, Cheyenne was out there in Tehran, creating blasphemous music and risking his life doing so. So it's not like
yeah,
some distant, remote past we're even talking about. It's the very recent past.
yeah. It's still so surreal that like that there are places in the world still where stuff like this happens or stuff like this flies, and that's what I meant. Like here, we're complaining about a lot of things here, but it's just like it's not dangerous to live here. Yeah.
Well, not to go back to this again, but it really sickens me even more when I hear people talk about freedom and they're like, we're being persecuted, and this whole thing about masks and Nazi Germany and all this bullshit. It's
Oh
like,
man.
I'm like, you guys don't
Yeah.
even, you never left your fucking state, man. It's like, go out into the world and see some real persecution. You know what I mean? And it's like,
I dude like
yeah, I mean, I don't feel persecuted. I mean, I feel like I live in a free society, and there's like a bunch of like uneducated hunchbacks out there who have no fucking clue about anything.
that's just I can only like people can find this on the internet. It's just so surreal that like the anti-vax movement here, um, they as a merch article you can buy off their dark web pages or I don't know
Dark.
Telegram messengers. um, they imitated like the arm like the armbands. I don't know like if that's the proper term, but like the like sweatbands, but like no, yeah, dude, what's the right word? But like the thing that the Jews had to wear in Nazi Germany, where it says Jew in the with a Jewish star around their arm.
Yeah,
Remember? Yeah,
yeah,
they have the same
armband.
thing, but yeah, armband. Right. Okay. So they have the same thing in the same like blue on yellow or blue on white with the Jewish star, but it says unvaccinated. So
Dude.
that's what they do now. So
That
they think it's the same thing like Nazi persecuting Jews. It's the same what they are going through right now.
man, if I was Jewish, I would be so completely offended by that. You know, I mean,
Yeah, and the
I'm
Jews
offended by
are.
it. Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
I'm offended by it now. you know, and I'm not Jewish.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. Well, yeah. Should I go on?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
All right. Number 2. Um, a band from, I think, Portland. It's an
Uh-oh.
American band. Yeah, I know. Uh-oh. Um, do you know a guy called Blake Green? Does that ring a bell?
No.
No. He is mostly known for being the founding member of this band Wolf Serpent.
Okay.
Uh, a dark two-person doom band. It was him playing guitar and a drummer, a girl playing drums and violin, and she's in Wolves in the Throne Room now. And they also used to tour with Wolves in the Throne Room. It's very esoterical stuff. Wolf Serpent in it itself is already like a hidden treasure that I only can recommend to people if you're into funeral doom and ritualistic sludge stuff. But this guy, not only does he have this band, he has like a black metal band called Il Itil, which is also very good. And I'm also not talking about this, but I'm talking about his solo stuff, which he does under the moniker of Alter. That's Aelter. In German, it means it's older. It's pretty much the German word for older. Um, he did like there are 4 self-titled records under that name, and I want to talk about number 4. So that's the Roman numbers IV. So number 4, Love Eternal. Came out in 2015 on Pesenta Orfolk, which is like the label that did they did like this black metal neo folk festival in the Appalachian Mountains, which is not happening anymore. And so Elter, so I never talked about this to you, Mike, right?
No,
You
no,
never
because
heard of this?
we went into a big thing about funeral doom a few months ago, and yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think you didn't tell me about this band.
Yes. So first off, Wolf Serpent, you will like this, but dude, you will love the fuck out of this record. So Elter, Love Eternal. It sounds so the let me just check this to get it accurate. Discogs states it is a mixture of folk, world music, country, doom metal, and black metal. It is remotely true. If you can think, like if you can imagine, Boron and the Club of Gore
Ah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
teaming teaming up with Angelo Badalamenti and Woven Hand
Mm.
in a very dark world. That's how this record sounds. It's slow, it's moody, it's brooding. The songs are called Death Eternal, Love Eternal, Life Eternal, and Hope Eternal. It's almost 40 minutes long. It has strumming, really slow strumming, reverby, twangy guitars, Wurlitzer organs blasted through reverb, slow, steady drums, spoken, mumbled words of darkness. It's incredible music to listen to in the dark or when you're on tour and driving late at
Oh,
night.
wow, perfect.
It yeah, yeah, it is 110% Mike Hill music. Yeah.
Damn, I got to check this out. I'm gonna listen to this today. Actually, I'm gonna find it.
Yeah, it's actually on Spotify. I don't know why. I think it is. I think I have saved it. Otherwise, you will all find it on the Wolf Serpent or Alter Bandcamp stuff. All this guy touches. He has a new black metal band called Lunar Temple. There's only one demo song, which is 20 minutes long, and it's also great. Il Itil, like his black metal band, he has like his other solo project. Like it's one of these prolific Portland people. If I'm not correct, like if I'm not mistaken, I think he's from that area. If he's not from there, I'm sorry, I don't know. Should have done better research. But he's totally seems like a Portland guy, but like someone who really knows what he's doing. All his bands are great. Alter, Love Eternal is probably my favorite thing he has done.
That sounds fascinating to me, and I'm totally all in on it. And I will probably go to their Bandcamp and purchase something from them once we wrap this up today.
All right, perfect.
that's my preferred method, man. I like to go to Bandcamp and actually purchase it. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And then I think for people like us who are in bands, we know it's the only way that the band actually directly profits from it. Yes, Bandcamp takes its margin, but they do I think the Bandcamp Friday thing is one of the coolest things that a big company has done. So where they don't waive their fees, and still, I mean, I see it like they take, I think, 10% or something of a purchase, which is not a whole lot compared to other platforms. The 0.00124 cents you get on Spotify for a stream.
Yeah, dude.
Um,
It's not even a
Unbelievable.
comparison, really. I mean, it's like, it's just, I know everyone doesn't like to pay for anything these days, but it's like, it's so fucking criminal the way like major labels have just like pivoted their exploitation away from like, all right, well, we're now everyone can listen for free, but we're making you subscribe and we make all these millions of dollars, and these bands like get like some very small pittance,
Yeah, it's very very dumb, and but it's the way it operates. And I actually do this in like in 10th grade in school, when I teach music, and um, I always do like in 10th grade, um, I do the music industry, how it works, and there's a calculator where you can actually like check the song that you like most on Spotify, and by the clicks, like calculate how much money was being made of this. And then it goes through another platform where it says like, okay, the label takes this much. And so you see like that you have to stream a song like 3,000 times. So the actual artist gets like a dollar or something. It's
yeah.
it's insane. So yeah. Meanwhile, I checked. He's from Boise, Idaho. I'm
Okay.
sorry, it's not a Portland person. I have no idea about Idaho. I've heard about Boise, Idaho, and it sounds like remote and empty, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, Idaho's pretty desolate for the most part. Yeah, it's not far from the Northwest though. I mean, it's adjacent to those Washington and Oregon, so it's not too far away.
Yeah, it's definitely like bleak and remote. That's something for that works for this music. And I just checked. It's Alter, AELTER.bandcamp.com. It has all their releases on there. And I just saw that he posted 2 new demos of new songs, and I'm excited.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. What's next for you?
All right, this next one for me is born out of our recent discussions of this particular band that has a deep history that everyone knows about. However, I'm going to call attention to a period of time where they might have fallen off the radar with some people, and there actually were some really quality releases during that period. Now, of course, I'm talking about TSOL, True Sounds of Liberty, which, yeah, you and I have been going back and forth about this for a while now, but
Yeah, man.
it's okay. Everyone knows about Jack Grisham. They know about the early era of the band. The 1980. They formed in 1980. The LA punk hardcore era, and of course that's that's probably the seminal version of the band. We got Jack Grisham on vocals. We got Ron Emery on guitar. We got Mike Roche on bass, and Todd Barnes on drums. And that's like Weathered Statues, Thoughts of Yesterday, all the hits. You know what I mean? In '83, Grisham and Barnes leave the band. Okay, and I read an interview with Jack, and he was talking about how escalating violence at shows, and people looking to him as some kind of director of this whole thing. He got disillusioned to that, and he left the band. Which I thought was funny because Jack Grisham was also part of like some kind of hardcore crew during that point of time, which were like, involved in violence and mayhem and all this other stuff too. I just thought that was kind of funny, So the last record that that he made with them was called Beneath the Shadows, which was quite good. I don't think people really gave it enough listens, but it's at that point they were shifting away from hardcore and going into this almost Susie and the Banshees kind of vibe, this like gothic rock sort of direction. So when he left, they replaced him with a singer, Joe Wood, and also a new drummer, Mitch Dean. And those guys put together this, they were involved in the band for a few years, and they released these two great albums. One's called Change Today, which came out in 1984, and the other one was Revenge, which came out in 1986. And then, you know, they should have quit while they were ahead, and then they made a record called Hit and Run in 87, which is, in my opinion, not very good. But
No.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I know that you're quite fond of these records, too.
Dude, so much. And like I said on the Gun Club episode, I owe it to you because you posted the video for Revenge some years ago when Facebook was still the hot stuff, when we're just like getting detox from MySpace. um, yeah, you posted it. I'm like, oh, I always wanted to listen to TSOL because that name always came up when people talked about punk in California, punk. I'm like, okay, might as well do it now if Mike posts this. And it was something completely different, especially like if you take the title track Revenge, it's played with an acoustic guitar, which is also different from the rest of the record. But you have these cool 80s California looking punks, looking like from The Little Vampire, or from Lost Boys. In this 80s camera quality, the song Revenge is just a killer song. I'm like, this is not what I expected it to be, but this looks fucking awesome. So I was able to track down, and that was cool. Like I tracked down the record without ever listening to it on YouTube because it was prior to Spotify and all these things. So I got this one of a secondhand list, got it, and I think it didn't leave my turntable for 2 weeks. It's just so fucking good. And then I got Changed Today. And I think people that are into this band and this phase of the band, they're leaning more towards Change Today. And I mean, it's like Revenge is 100% on my scale and Change Today is probably 99%.
Yeah.
But that's just because Revenge was first. But man, these two records are good.
Yeah, man, it's interesting because the band TSOL, it's like definitely always had this like dark sort of energy to them, you know, this dark vibe. But like with the Jack version of the band, I think he was referencing more like Dave Vanian and like the Damned and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And then when Joe Wood joined, they were going more into this like Jim Morrison Doors, you know, kind of with like a rockabilly kind of vibe to it, you know, like definitely consistent with like something similar to like maybe what the Gun Club was doing, you know.
Yes.
And both versions of the band are totally legit in my opinion, and
Yes.
they just tickle different aspects, you know, and I love the Jack Grisham version of the band, but I also really like the Joe Wood version too, except for Hit and Run. That's like that's a little too far if you ask me.
Yeah, it's kind of the same mistake that the Cult made at some point, where they like tried to step away from their gothy post-punk kind of background and wanted to enter the real rock realm.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Cult did it in a better way, but even like when they started like electric and became like a full-on rock band, they also did some records that weren't that good anymore. Like thankfully, like that incarnation of TSOL stopped after that. It's not like if it comes up on a shuffle on tour, I wouldn't stop it. But it's also not the TSL record I would go to. I just think like it's pretty much two different bands because, yeah, they have the same name, but apart from that, they're like two separate entities in a way.
Well, that hit and run record too. I have that on vinyl. I bought it like back in the '80s because I was like, oh yeah, man, TSOL, cool, and like, wow, they look like LA Guns now or something like that. But let me check it out, and quickly, I was, wow, this is not that good,
Yeah.
Definitely a misstep.
No.
But the other two records I think are great.
They indeed are. I gotta say, like, still to this day, Revenge on my on my playlist at least once a month, and it's one of these records. Like after like doing several tours with your bands, which records are always good records to play on tour that everybody's into, and people are like, "Cool, we're on the road again." And Revenge is definitely one of those. Yeah.
There's that cool video too. There's like a proper like music video for Revenge, which is pretty
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Them like riding on choppers through LA.
Yeah.
With their like cool bandanas and yeah, it's one of those bands like also Lords of the New Church, and you just like look at them and think like, boy, they're so cool. I will never pull something off like them. Gotta say, TSOL, in my opinion, the cooler band than Lords of the New Church. Yeah.
I agree with that, man. I only really like that song Russian Roulette by them.
Yeah, it's a bit too much over the top, but I mean from the like what I mean from the aesthetic with the leather and like looking like fucking Guns N' Roses. But like on the cover of Revenge, like the band photo, they actually like don't look as gothy as they look in the music video. I think they like after they released it, they like turned even more towards the dark side.
Yeah.
But they look like this classic California rock band. I would like to use the word Peckerwood, but I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do here.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. It's that's a hot button word, I feel. And
Yeah.
but the that video has like the two things that being a guy who grew up on the East Coast, I always like romanticize those two archetypes of West Coast culture is like the cool like Chicano, like with the cool fedora and the bandanas and the flannel shirts and the big dickies and stuff, like the work pants, like that whole style, and then the the biker, the LA Southern California like biker archetype. Those are like two things that, especially when I was a kid in the '80s, like I just never saw people like that growing up in in the suburbs in New York. And I always thought that was like these like really cool like exotic archetypes.
Yeah. And now imagine coming from small town Germany, looking at these cats. I'm like, oh man, wow. Did you? I don't know if that was a big thing in the States, but do you know that old kids show from the '80s, The Little Vampire?
No, I don't think I know that.
Oh man, it was such a big success here, and I think it's British American production, and it has Gerd Fröbe who played Goldfinger, like that actor, and he plays like a vampire hunter.
Oh, cool.
And it's based on a children's book called The Small Vampire, where like this loser kid makes friends of a teenage vampire and his little sister, and they become friends, and it's a coming of age story. And they did like in the '80s they did like a TV show about that, and it looks like, I mean, we talked about this in like one of my choices that I wanted to talk about, and maybe if we like do another love songs for the unloved, I will talk about Mighty Sphincter, a topic that always comes up. That video for Ghost Walking, this camera style playing on these graveyards, this gloomy '80s VHS kind of quality to it, this lo-fi thing. That's how the show was produced, and it was really really dark, and especially like the scenes of the vampire family living in the crypts. Like you could see like these dark caves where they were living, and his like the Anton was the little vampire. No, let me correct this. I don't know what the English word. Like in Germany it was Rüdiger, and I don't know if the British word. Anton was the kid, but like the vampire had like a bigger brother. He was called Lumpy in Germany, which is just like lumpy is the if you have like a shirt which is completely worn out and
Okay.
you think about using it to like clean like an oven or something. This is what you call a lumpen. That was his name because he was like the bum in the family, but he was actually like a goth punk playing in a goth punk band. So there was this vampire, and they had like a celebration, and they played, and it's an actual goth punk video, and the song to this day holds up as like one. I think it was my actual entry point into goth music. I will send it to you like after we're done here because it's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And these vampires, they have the look like Lost Boys and also like the guys in TSOL. Yeah.
Lost Boys and the guys in TSOL. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man. It's just like, yeah, everybody out there, like the German people again, like we did on the Gun Club episode when I talked, or no, the Sylvester Stallone when I talked about Over the Top. Everybody here knows der kleine Vampir, so the little vampire, and it's crazy that this wasn't like a success in the States. I will send you a trailer for that, and I think you would watch it if you could see it, yeah, because it looks just so fucking cool.
Well, since I'm in quarantine for the next few days, maybe I should check it out. I got time. you know.
Yeah. All right. I'll send a link, and maybe you can track it down somewhere online. Yeah.
Actually, weren't you saying that Joe Wood is performing around the country doing these TSOL songs at somehow?
Yes, right. And he has a band called Ta Da 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 Change Today. That's his band now. So he plays, and I think it's him and the drummer, like the original two, like these two cats, and they've got like two other guys. And they're playing occasionally. They have a Facebook page, and they're like he posts a lot. He's actually active, not as active as TSOL are because they're playing like all the reunion shows right now at all these big punk festivals. But like they play like smaller clubs, like backyards and shit, and there are like a ton of videos of them playing live. He's still got the looks down with the bandana and everything, and the flannel shirts. And they're playing only songs of these two records, but they also started writing new stuff in that vein,
Oh, that's
which
cool.
I will totally back if they ever release it. Yeah.
I would like to hear because I thought he was great, man. Like he had a killer voice and just his lyrics I thought were really good.
Yeah, he still does. I mean, he's like an older guy now. I don't know. Like he must be like in his late 50s, probably. I
At
don't know.
least I would say at
And
least, yeah.
yeah, but he's still like he's got the voice down, he's got the looks down. I think like they're still a legit cool band, and yeah, man. I mean, this is one of the things they will never come over to Europe. So at some point, hopefully, if I ever come to the States and maybe fly out to the West Coast, I will be able to catch a show of them because it would just be cool to hear these songs live. Yeah.
That's like the one look. I always had, like I said it earlier on, I always was really into that look of the kind of Chicano, like Southern California look. If you're from L.A. or San Diego or somewhere in Orange County, and you're a white guy, you're not Mexican or from South America, you can somehow pull that off, like with that dressing that way, you know. But a guy from New York or New Jersey can't really do that look with any authority. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, of
And
course.
I feel like I've missed out somehow. I would love to dress like that, but I just don't think it would work for me.
For us, like if we would do it, it would look like two idiots at like Halloween trying to imitate something from that what's that biker show? Sons of Anarchy.
Oh yeah, totally, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think Mike Muir, like the Suicidal Tendency guys. I think he took this outfit into the world, and people probably here, if you do that in Germany, they would say like, "Oh, you're a Suicidal fan," but
Yeah.
All right, my last one, right?
Yeah.
So, as I said, I mixed it. I had a hardcore band, then I had like this, I don't know, gothy kind of like ambient, whatever music. Got to do one black metal thing at least. And I mean, I always like tell you about German bands, and there's like a bunch of good ones. We talked about Vernask and like a bunch of other stuff. But I have to give shout outs to some of my homies because before I get into this band, let me ask you something.
Okay.
Is there is there in America, is there judgment towards black metal bands about the way they look? And I mean I speak about bands where you can take the music seriously. I'm not talking about Death Heaven. Is there like good bands that people criticize just for the way they look, even though their music is like 110% spot on?
And see, this is hard for me to answer because I'm probably like the biggest judgmental asshole there is out there. But I think in general in the states in black metal, people are a little bit more liberal about what they'll accept. You know, as far as
Yeah.
like if the band is good, if they don't look like black metal guys, I think that they'll probably acknowledge it as being good.
Yeah. And that's see that's why again I feel more like an American in that sense that I mean I think hands down one of the best black metal bands is Yellow Eyes right now from Brooklyn, and if you see them walking the street you wouldn't even think that they play in a band at all. You would
Right.
probably think they're like some like nerds that get punched in the face all the time, but like Yellow Eyes is like one hands down one of the best bands. And like if when I found out about Fell Voices or Ash Borer or even Wolves to the Throne Room in the beginning, they didn't look like a hollow metal. Like Wolves to the Throne Room looked like a crust band. And so like there were bands that don't look metal but still are accepted if the music is good. And I think the biggest criticism that Death Heaven gets or that Liturgy got was like them trying to be intellectuals and look shit and also like play music that's shit. And I always try to not judge people because of that. So for me, Liturgy or Death Heaven were just never good bands. Here in Germany, it's a different case though, because I think here people are being raised as true metalheads, you know? Like people that grow up with metal and they, I don't know, they listen to Mortician when they snuggle with their girlfriend or something. Um, so if you don't apply to their set of rules about how a black metal band has to look or to behave, you're not down. You're not a black metal band. And I gotta say, like, there are these bunch of bands that are complete horseshit. They call themselves black metal, but they sound like this will destroy us with screaming vocals or I don't know, man, like third class ISIS knockoffs that claim they're like down tempo black metal or something. And horseshit, they look shit, they sound shit. But when we started with Ultha, people at first heard it and they said like this sounds awesome. And then they saw pictures of us and then it was like, oh look at these faggots. They're gay leftists, hipster faggots. But we got like spat on for that and people but like at some point we're like okay so they're the real deal. There are two bands here in Germany and they're all related to us. They're like well they're related to us because the guitar player of all these bands plays in Ulta now too. The
Okay.
one band is called Sun Worship from Berlin and the other band is called Unruhe from Bielefeld, and I want to focus on Unruhe for now and next time I will do Sun Worship. So Unruhe to me is one of the best bands playing dark black metalish music right now. They have a full length out and a bunch of splits. They will release a new full length next year, which I was happy like to hear already, and it will be my favorite black metal album next year. I can already spoiler that. But with 2016's Als Tier ist der Mensch nichts, which translates to as an animal, the man is nothing. It's a very philosophical band, and the band is called Unru, which is UNRU, which means translated riot or ruckus or restlessness. Not to be confused with the Arizona
Yep.
crust hardcore band Unru with an H in the end. Um, they started in 2012 with a more like apocalyptic crust meets like 90s Bremen hardcore Acme, Zestral, and these bands. But for like transformed themselves into a more black metal-ish, I want to call it, a band. They recorded this record at the Tonmeisterei, which is the German equivalent to God City, meaning if you have like a band that needs to sound heavy as fuck, loud, pounding, you can go there, and as bad as your band might be, the sound itself will be awesome. They went in there and completely changed the recipe. And this record, again, people that know my taste and what I talk about here, I love reverb on guitars. And this whole thing is drenched in reverb. It's down-tuned. It's dark as fuck. It's bleak as fuck. It is some songs are more like noise rock, mid-tempo. Then there's a really long black metal song, very repetitive, screaming vocals, dark vocals, kind of what we do in Ulfa, but differently. So it's, dude, like how to like compare it. If you like if you like the like Two Hunters of Wolves in the Throne Room, add a dose of early Neurosis to it, put it in a blender and add layers of reverb and darkness on it. That's how Unruh sounds.
That sounds great, man. I also need to check them out.
Yeah, they released with Supreme Chaos in Germany and Europe, but they were also on Sentient Ruin from Portland. Like Mattia of Obstructor put them out, and I know that like a bunch of people that knew it through Sentient Ruin were like, this is fucking awesome. That's a German black metal band. Wow. And then I remember that like when Abstractor did their only tour here, I met Mattia and we're talking about German black metal. He's like, dude, this Unruh record, I love it. But I met these guys. How the fuck do they look? What's wrong with them? And they don't even look that weird. They're just like normal guys, you know, like they they don't look eccentric or nothing. They're just like, you look like regular people listening to extreme music. They have short hair and but it's a mystery to me, especially like when we talk about Sun Worship next time, probably like this other band from Berlin. They look like what they used to look like oh dude, what's the name? Like I would walk 500 miles. Like you know that song?
Like the Water Boys or something like that.
And yeah, I don't know, like I don't remember what the name, the communards or something. I don't know. Like they look like geeks. At first, like people were like, hey, they look like physics students, like physics
Physics
students.
students. That's awesome.
um, but they just nail it. They're just so good at what they do. Like, and that's the thing why Unruh, Sun Worship, and Ulta are such a close unit. And we will tour with Unruh next year. And as I said, like Lars, who founded Sun Worship, he plays in Unruh too, and also in on Ulta. We all grew up with black metal, but also with tons of other bands. We're all like raised in political ways that we're like anti-fascist, but we're like still not stupid enough to like being blinded, you know, like blind idiots. And I love these two bands to death, and I'm so glad that Ultha is like in their realm and we're like homies. And I look forward to this tour next year. And I really hope like some Americans listening to this, or like from wherever you are listening to this, give these bands like give them a proper push, and like unru.bandcamp.com, you also find all their stuff. Amazing band, great live band, fantastic dudes, love them.
I feel like in general, people in the U.S. are more likely to listen to European bands. You know what I mean? I think that,
Yeah.
especially anyone listening to this podcast, will be likely to check out a band and not be so wrapped up in whether or not they have like spikes or long hair, or if they look like dudes who study philosophy. It's like I think
Yeah.
people are a little bit more open to that in the States for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Europeans not so much, because I remember one time when we were over in that tour, the last actual proper tour we did over there, and it wasn't even that extensive, was with Black Anvil, and we were playing in some town in Germany, and this kid was like criticizing. Actually, it was I think it was Black Anvil's patches, that they had round patches instead of rectangular ones, and I was like, dude, like, is it like, I just don't get that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand
Yeah.
the rigidness of some people's ideas.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reputation German metal fans have, that they're like very confrontational, like in telling you what was good and what was not,
Mm-hmm.
and also like complaining about merch. I remember
Yeah.
when Danny and I were on our honeymoon some years back, which is by this point is almost 10 years ago. Um, we had our last stop in San Francisco, but we stayed for 2 nights in Oakland because the Dead Fest was happening. So that festival where Drop Dead are headlining both nights, and they pick the bands that they want to have.
Right.
And it was Drop Dead, and I think and Grief, and like a lot of like awesome bands. And like as always with American festivals, like 20 other bands that were playing the same day. And though we went there, all right, yeah, we went there primarily because Graves at Sea were playing. We both never had seen Graves at Sea play before. So I was browsing through the merch and went to the Graves at Sea merch, and I saw the shirt, and I checked first. I want to buy a shirt. I checked the brand of the shirt, and I'm like, excuse me, sir, could I see this in an X large, please? And he's like, yeah, okay. And someone in the next, like on the next table with the other band, started laughing loud. It's like, Ralph, is that you? I'm like, huh, what? And it was Steven from Graf Orlok, a band that I did shows for them a bunch of times. And he was laughing. He's like, the story was like, so I saw you and I thought it must be you, but I'm like, what the fuck should Ralph do at a crust festival in the States? But when you asked for to see the shirt, if the size was proper, I knew you were German, so it must have been you.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you want to buy a shirt that fits, I guess, too, right?
Yeah. We're really like we're fond of the way we look here in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So yeah, if people coming out, I hear this all the time. Like, dude, we played this show once in Germany, and this one guy came up and said, like, so yeah, I was really looking forward to that set, but you didn't play the song I wanted to hear, so fuck you. I was like, okay.
Just another public service announcement out there to people. If I ever tour Europe again and you're gonna say "fuck you" to me, put your hands up. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you right off the bat that you're gonna get punched in the face by coming at me like that. So there you go. You were warned.
Yeah. And I have to say something too, like for the listeners out there, if you're wondering, I didn't fall asleep while doing this podcast. I have a gigantic, big black American Stafford lying next to me sleeping, and he's just started snoring. And
That's
he
awesome,
sounds
man.
like, yeah, sounds like my dad when I was younger. I was like, "Urgh." Like, but he's dreaming and hunting in his dream right now. Yeah, so it's not me snoring.
Well, that was fun for sure, man.
Yeah, awesome. I
Yeah.
think that's a cool open format, and like I think it's a cool filler for like whenever we say like, oh, let's do an episode, and without big research, just like stuff we know anyhow.
Yeah, it was cool, man. And one of the things I like doing is talking about bands that I just think more people should know about. And I
Yeah,
think we hit all those boxes here.
yeah, and it's the cool thing is also that like surprising each other, because I knew like, okay, either I told you about Alter, and I still to this like right now I wonder why I never told you about them, because this is so much the music that you and I are into, and I think you will love the fuck out of this record.
It sounds right up my alley. And I remember, a few months ago we had this big, discussion about Funeral Doom, and I think it was after I
Yeah.
had John on Metal Matters from Evoken,
Mhm.
and it seems like 10 years ago, but yeah, it was last year maybe,
Yeah.
or maybe earlier this year. I don't even can't really fathom time anymore. But
Yeah.
but yeah, and that band was, for some reason, you didn't mention them, but they sound great.
Yeah, it's like I should have mentioned Wolf Serpent, right? That they would have fit it into that mold, because they were already good. Um, I will send you like links to these records that I recommend on Facebook, and all that stuff is also on Bandcamp, so you can also like add it to the playlist on Spotify. So you can like add it to the list for people to listen to. I think Just Neglect only has like some live recordings, but yeah, it's like Alter is on there, Unruh is on there, Wolf Serpent is on there. So yeah,
Yeah, once again, everyone, if you guys are on Spotify, we've been doing these playlists, and if you want to go to the show notes over at everythingonblackmedia.com, you'll be able to find other links to the Bandcamp pages for all these bands. Wow, there's like a monster on the other end of. That's awesome.
He's so loud, man.
Yeah.
And he's hunting, so he's like moving his paws and he's like shaking. He's like in deep REM state right now.
That's killer.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Ralph, and thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
city.